Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to start with our final project, and we're going to start with the environment setup. We're going to start working on the environment for this guy. This is the scene called Final Scene Start. I'm actually going to save it real quick, so before I forget, I'm going to call this Final Scene Finish. And we're going to do three types of light setups. We're going to keep the environment pretty much the same. Maybe we do a couple of changes here and there. And the character is also going to be like very similar on most of them. But I want to play around with the feeling and the emotions that we want to convey with each individual environment. Now, how are we going to do an environment? Well, right now, or for this particular series or tutorial, we don't have enough time to do a full environment, so we're going to be using Quixel. All of the assets that I'm going to be providing you came from Quixel. Quixel is now has been acquired by Unreal, and all of the content that is inside of Quixel is completely free. So if you go here to products and browse Megascans, we have all of this Megascans, and it's totally fine to use Megascans or any sort of like 3D models to decorate your scene, especially if you're not an environment artist, so long as you specify on your piece of the portfolio or on your demo reel that those were not made by you. Because the worst thing that could happen is someone calls you and they're like, hey, I saw the environment of your character and I love that one, can you do that one for me? And yeah, so always make sure to credit the artist and credit where things came from. In this case, this one's came from I believe it was can't remember which one it was. This one, Nordic Coastal Cliffs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say File, and in this Final Scene Finish, in your case Final Scene Start, you're going to say File, Create Reference, and we're going to reference this one that's here for you, that's called Nordic Cliffs Kit. When you reference this in, what's going to happen is all of the things that were on that specific element are now going to be here. There is a sky dome light, which we can use. If you want to use this one, that's fine. If you don't want to use this, just don't forget to hide it, because otherwise you're going to get two lights. I'm going to keep this one just for now. And if I press number 6, which is texture mode, we should see the textures. If things are not linked, don't worry. We're going to go Windows, General Editors, File Path Editor, and we just need to make sure that, as you can see, all of these things are not they're not set. So no problems. We're just gonna grab all of these guys. We're gonna say Repath Files, and we're gonna browse them. Remember when I mentioned that not all of them were gonna be in source images? These ones are actually in assets. So here, just select this one, Set, and Repath. And as you can see, those have properly been repathed. So now if we press number 6 and turn this thing off, you should see everything with textures. So all of the cliffs have now been textured. So how are we gonna set up a scene? What are the things that we need to think about when we are setting up a scene? Well, first of all, we need a camera. We've already know about this. It's very important to have a camera. So I'm gonna go rendering. We're gonna create a camera. I'm gonna say panels, look to selected, and I'm gonna call this camera shotgun. Now we're going to be working, as you can see, we still have the square element from the other scene, and we're going to be working with the full HD, so 16:9 proportion or aspect ratio. Oh, full HD, there we go. And yeah, it's time to find a frame. So when we talk about framing a character or creating a scene, the first thing we need to think about is the composition. We've mentioned composition, we've talked about several things about composition, but now we're really gonna go in depth about what makes a good composition and what makes a bad composition. So a good composition is a composition that helps the story. We need to tell a story, and that's usually what you wanna do through your pieces, especially if you're gonna be doing things like this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab all of the geometries from the cliffs, and I'm just going to move them to the side, like this. And I'm going to find where I want my character to be. Do I want him to be on the foreground? Do I want him to be on the middle ground? Or do I want him to be on the background, right? That will be, or that should be the first question that you ask yourself. In this case, for the first photo, for the first element that I want to create, I actually want it to be a establishing shot. And the concept of establishing shot is any kind of shot that establishes a scene. So establishing shot. It's again very common, and it's usually a wide shot. You're gonna see a lot of the environment. There can be characters that there's no problem, but it should allow you to understand where you are. One of the best ones I remember are the ones from Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings, one of my favorite movies, and this kind of shots are very common, right? Like you have your character, he's looking towards a direction, he's gonna travel somewhere, and you just absorb the whole element. And I love the establishing shots. So this is what we're gonna start with, and I want to start with establishing shot where my character is on the I think midground would be fine. So I'm gonna start right here. I'm gonna grab this group, and I actually group everything so that we can rotate him a little bit like easier. There's a double transform though, so I think we actually need to grab the reference because that's the skeleton. We're just gonna rotate this guy. I mean, we don't even have to do that. We can just rotate the camera the other way, right? So we're gonna go with the character right about here. This is gonna be my shot. If I go back to the camera, now I need to decide the focal length. And as we mentioned, for establishing shots, one of the important things is you want to capture as much as possible. So I'm gonna try to go with a low focal length, something like a 24. And as you can see, that immediately changes how it looks. Now the character's on the floor. Right now, it doesn't really seem like it. There's a little bit of a perspective issue, or it's not. We can't really appreciate it as much. But he is on the floor. So where do we want him to be? Up here, in the middle, or down here, right? Like all of those are the questions that we should ask ourselves. So usually it's down here. It's usually in a sort of position where it works like this. And now that we have this, we can start working on placing all of the different stones. So I'm going to go panels. I'm going to say tier of copy to have a copy of the composition right here. And I'm going to go to my perspective view. Now, as you can see, when I move out, since this is going to be a really, really big scene, and it's part of what we're going to do to make this looks as nice as possible, since this is going to be a big scene, we definitely need to play around with something called the clip planes. We haven't actually touched this once, but if you click this thing right here, underneath the focal length, we have this thing called the clip planes, and that's the plane where it's like a distance where the camera stops rendering things. So if we go really far away, you can see things disappear, but if you just add 1, 0 right here, we're going to see them again. So usually something like this should work. I'm going to start with the big cliff right here, and I'm going to position it on the background. So this guy's going to be like, I would say right about there. Something like that looks interesting. And then we can just duplicate this guy, rotate it around, and we can even play around with the scales and stuff. Now, when we see this thing right here, we need to think about the composition. And again, we can go for a symmetrical composition, we can go for a rule of thirds, we can go for this Fibonacci, like golden ratio sequence. I'm going to go for like a golden ratio. So I'm going to start here with the character, and we're going to spiral, and the main point of the composition is going to be right here. So I'm going to play around with the position of this cliffs, so that it looks like this is the point or the place where I want my character to go. Now let's move some of this back. Now here's another thing. You should always try and use the assets that you have in a way or in such a way to point the characters towards where you want them to be. So for instance, this stone right here that has this very obvious direction pointing towards this side, this is the kind of stuff that I would probably want to have right here. There's another rule that we're going to be taking a lot of care about, and that is called the tangents. You don't want to have an object that's in front of another object, such as this one, connect on a point here on the composition, because this point right there that's connecting, that's going to make the composition feel flatter. So if we want to do like weird stuff, like in this case, I'm fine with this or like door right here, but this one right here, I definitely want to just like push this forward and have it overlap. I would rather have it overlap with the stone rather than creating its own stuff. This is also going to be helpful to hide things that we're not going to be able to see or that we're not going to be seeing, because that's also going to be important. We have this other wall right here. Let's use this to frame a little bit of the midground right here. So right about there. And then this one, for instance, let's duplicate it again. Rotate it. I'm gonna scale it down, maybe scale it long way. I'm actually gonna rotate this so that we see a different part of the texture, because since we're repeating textures, it might become a little bit obvious that we're using the same one. Let's push this back as well, like that. And then we have this small stones as well. So let's bring this one in. I really like this like small like rock formation to be framing some of the like foreground. It's gonna be like it's not gonna be super super visible. I want to go for like a low ground like this. There we go. Careful with the tangents, just again making sure that the composition works. One very cool trick is hitting number 7. Actually, right now since we have light, we're not gonna see anything. But if you don't have a light, like if we were to turn off the sky dome right here and we place number 7, we're only gonna be able to see the silhouette, and that could also help you like find a good composition. Now I do have a couple of grounds here for the character to stand on, so that we don't have like just like a plane. So I'm gonna have him stand right there on the border of the element. I might have him stand on because the problem is we don't really have a ground floor, like a texture. So I'm thinking about going like a little bit lower and just deleting this plane right here. Oh, I can't. So let's just hide it. And what we can do is let's have this sort of like floating mountains, right? So we don't really see the ground, but we do see the elements. They're the mountains. There we go. And we just hide all of these elements. Now here again is where we can play with composition. See the silhouette of the character right here? That's the kind of stuff that we want to see. That's the compositions that we're looking for, because those are the ones that are gonna make sure the character looks really, really cool. And here's where we use one trick that's called it's kind of like what magicians use. Like if you're not gonna see it, then it's totally fine, because no one's gonna know that that we're missing that sort of effect. I think we're gonna have to bring the composition a little bit closer. Lowering this again, lower. We're trying to go here, so we might have to add something there, something interesting. Let's keep lowering these things so we don't see the cutting off point. Now one thing we can do, if we don't want to see the cutting off point but we still want to keep these things like relatively high, for instance like this, there are a couple of planes like this plane right here, and we can just rotate this plane and kind of use it to hide some of the ground. We need to see how this actually looks, right? Let's turn off textures, and as long as the combination there doesn't look half bad, then we're fine. Even this one right here, we can just grab this one. Oh, grab this floor right here, push it over here, and just create like this sort of ramp. And again, as long as the cutoff point doesn't look super weird or obvious, it's gonna be fine. We can already make a quick test, so let's save this real quick. And I'm gonna say Arnold and just render. Now I do what's the word? I do warn you guys. There's a lot of models. There's a lot of textures. There's a lot of things going on. So it might take a little bit longer than usual. Let's go shot cam. Let me stop this because I think I forgot to turn off the light or turn on the light. And right now we just have an HDRI. It's just a basic one of the basic HDRIs that we're using. But there we go. Look at that. Not freaking bad, right? Not freaking bad. So this already looks like a scene from a movie, I would say. Looks very cool. Yeah, as you can see, like this curvature right here doesn't really like annoy me or makes it like complicated or anything. So I think that's fine. I do think the cape's way too shiny for this particular one. So let's go back here to the initial substance node, and let's bring the luminosity down and the color down as well. There we go. Let's give it a shot now. Did not update. Render update full scene. We're gonna have to play around with that one a little bit, but yeah, as you can see, we're building this very cool world. Now the light looks horrible. It's a very bad light, but this to me tells me that we're on the right path. I'm gonna push this one. I'm gonna push this one a little bit backwards, and I'm gonna duplicate this one. I'm gonna have another one, like a very similar one, like back here, but really far away. Even if the clip plane doesn't see it, this is one of the interesting things. Even if the clip plane doesn't see your render or your element, when you render, it is going to be visible. Let's just wait for this to update. Let me actually stop that. Render, update full scene. It should see it though. Oh, weird. Okay, let's grab this camera right here. Let's just add 2 more zeros. Okay, what could be happening here? No, because the Nordic cliff face. No, it's the scale is at 0, so I'm not really sure. We're not seeing it. No, it's there. Okay, let's just like close the render and just open it again. Maybe it forgot to like add the image. Am I getting an error or something? There we go. So let's go back to ShotCam. There we go. So now we see that pillar over there. And the cape actually updated as well. Cool. So yeah, I like that one. That one looks interesting. And let's do one more. Far away as well. Like this. Now we also have like stones and boulders and stuff. So let's add some of this guys as well. And again, these are gonna add depth and cool information to the whole scene. Let's use the same one, but back here. And one thing we could add just for what's the word? For compositional effect. Let's add just like a big, like obvious orb, like right here. Like that would be like the focus point. I wish we had like a like one of those ships from the movies, and that would be quite nice. But yeah, you can see the composition is flowing very nicely here. We are gonna eventually go into composition, and we're gonna play around with the backplate because we don't have anything just yet. But yeah, that works. This works very nice. Cool. So there's one final thing I'm gonna add right now before we start playing with the lights for this particular scene, and that is fog. Fog is definitely gonna be important for this one because it's gonna give us a sense of depth. Right now, as you can see right here, everything seems to be on the same plane. Yes, we do have a very interesting effect with things going from one point to the other, but in general, everything seems to be, again, part of the same process. So I don't love that. Let's fix it. So to do that, you guys remember, well, let me save real quick before anything bad happens. And we're gonna go here, Arnold Renderer. We're gonna go, we need to close the renderer. We're gonna go environment, and we're gonna add an atmosphere volume. And if we check the atmosphere volume, we have the options right here. Let's start with something really low, like 0.001. Let's see how that looks, and let's say Arnold Render. And let's take a look. Let's wait for this to process. Seems like it's gonna try and do it from the perspective. Let's go to the ShotCam already. Okay, there we go. I don't see the atmosphere. Since this is real world scale, we might need more. So let's try with 0.1. Well, is that not enough? Interesting. Let's try 1. Let's try 10. That's not letting me do 10. It seems like it's not updating or something. We're not getting any errors, so this should be working. Could it be the denoiser? Let's remove this, guys, for just a second. And let's go back to the atmosphere volume. Huh, that's really weird. It should be working. I'm not really sure why it's not working. Let's turn this off again. So I'm gonna stop the video right here, guys, just to have like a good pause. We'll talk about fog in the next one, and we're gonna start lighting this in. So we're gonna start adding some interesting light effects to make sure that we get a very, very interesting composition. So hold on tight, and I'll see you back on the next video. Bye bye.